2025 was a pretty good year for movies, so I thought I'd cover some of the best I saw this year. Yeah, that's basically everything I wanted to tell you. Cue the intro. Okay, before we start, some honorable mentions. There are a couple of art house films that I unfortunately didn't get a chance to watch. Things like If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, Hammett, Train Dreams, and Sentimental Value. Yes, I know, I'm a fake cinephile, but if I do ever end up watching them in the future, I will let you guys know if they made the list. On that note, Monty Supreme was incredible, but it had its international release this year. So even though the US technically got it in 2025, I already wrote the script by the time I watched it, so I decided that it's out of the running for this list. Although realistically it'll probably end up on my 2026 list anyway. Fantastic Four First Steps was a good movie that needed like another 30 minutes to be truly great. Wicked for Good gets better the more I think about it, but a good adaptation of Wicked Act 2 is still an adaptation of Wicked Act 2. Zootopia 2 was a great sequel, but kind of felt clunky in areas, and I was surprised a little Ke Kwan was in this one. Mickey 17 had a great start, but really drops off around the halfway point. The Running Man was the most disappointed I've been by a movie this year. I mean, like, I still really liked it and thought it was fun, but I wanted to unabashedly love it. Infinity Castle was a visual marvel, and it made me cry, but the pacing was really bad, and I think it was outdone by a certain other anime movie. Thunderbolts is the most fun I've had with a Marvel movie since Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but it dragged quite a bit, and I didn't really like the way it ended. The Roses is underrated. I need more people to talk about that movie. The Electric State is the best movie ever made, and it was way too good to be put on a measly little list like this. K-Pop Demon Hunters is an incredibly fun movie that unfortunately doesn't really have anything to dig into with its story. And finally, Frankenstein. Listen, guys, I really tried, but I couldn't get into this one. I got like an hour in before just admitting defeat. I love Guillermo del Toro as a person, but I've never really cared for his movies. On that note, this feels like a good place to say that everything here is my opinion. It's okay if you disagree with every movie I've listed. With that being said, Roofman might be my new favorite biopic since Tick Tick Boom. So much of this movie is so wild that it's hard to believe it's based on a true story. I'm so glad they didn't portray the titular Roofman as a sympathetic guy down on his luck who ends up where he does due to circumstances out of his control. I mean, there are a lot of scenes where you can sympathize with him and they portray him like that, but then they remind you, oh, yeah, this guy's kinda insane actually. There's something he does during the climax that legitimately made me gasp. Channing Tatum and Kirsten Dunst are really good in this, and Peter Dinklage is way better than I thought he'd be. Honestly, it would be higher up if the middle wasn't so slow. I know it's a true story and there's not too much you can change, but once he gets involved with Dunst and the family, it feels like a lot of tension just disappears for a bit. Still, a really good movie that didn't deserve to bomb. Listen, I know there's a lot of movies that people love that didn't make it on my list, and some people might be mad that this made it over something like Frankenstein, but dude, genuinely, how was the Chainsaw Man movie this good? And I like Chainsaw Man, I think it's pretty good, but this was incredible. The animation is stunning, the music is incredible, Reze is an incredibly likable character, and I really liked her and Denji's dynamic. Honestly, if it wasn't for some of the weird things that carried over from the show and the final battle going on like a tad bit too long, this would have probably been in my top 5. There are a couple of movies I would have preferred to have put in theaters, but this is the movie I regret not catching the most. Look, if you don't like the show, I doubt this will change your opinion on it, but if you do, or you're just a fan of anime in general, I couldn't recommend this enough. As long as you can get over all the freaky stuff. I love the Knives Out movies. They're incredibly fun, clever, and subversive murder mystery films. The best thing I can say about Wake Up Dead Man is that it's the closest the series gets to a standard whodunit story. Now, I don't think it's quite as good as the other two, but if the original had the best story, and Glass Onion had the best characters, this one has the best mystery. So many twists and turns here, and you can never quite guess how one clue will play out or connect to another. And once the ending hits and everything is revealed, it's so satisfying. I also really like the character Josh Brolin plays, and the protagonist is really sympathetic. This is Blanc at his best. Unfortunately, I couldn't really get invested in the other suspects here. They're nowhere near as interesting as the ensemble from the other films. Also, there are some major pacing issues in the first half. About the time I thought we were reaching the climax, there was still an hour left. But then something happened in the middle and you get completely invested again, and things introduced in the first act are completely flipped on their head, and watch the Knives Out movies. Rhys Johnson with these movies is like the good ending to James Cameron with Avatar. don't really know what I can say about Superman that hasn't been said before. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. A bit overstuffed, but who cares when the things going on are this fun? David Carnsworth is just super, man. Nicholas Hoult is super silly and yet also super threatening. Listen, you've probably heard a lot of praise for this, so I'm gonna move on. But James Gunn really is one of the best comic directors to live. I'm not shy about my love for Popstar Never Stop Never Stopping. I have an entire short dedicated to it, and it's listed as one of my top 4 on Letterboxd. I think it's incredibly underrated and one of the funniest movies to come out in the past decade. The Naked Gun is funnier. I don't think it's as consistent or as heartfelt as Popstar, but in terms of standout jokes, the ones that made me laugh here made me laugh harder than anything in Popstar. Akiva Schaffer, I am begging you to make more movies. You are one of the funniest people alive. Please carry on putting out bangers like this. Dude, I don't even know what to say because I can't really criticize the story or the characters or anything like that because it's all intentionally ridiculous. I guess the only bad thing I can say is that not every bit here really worked for me, but between this and the new Anaconda, which I liked, screw you guys, I think a return to the classic comedy is coming. Highly recommend. I don't like Poor Things. I think it's way too long, uncomfortable in all the wrong ways, and to quote Peter Griffin,
it insists upon itself.
But the two things I will give it credit for is Emma Stone's excellent performance and Yorgos Lanthimos' stylish direction. So I'm happy to announce that Begonia is everything good about Poor Things with a script I can actually get into. The movie was extremely tense and dramatic and intense, but also deeply silly. Jesse Plemons is super threatening, and yet incredibly sympathetic. Aidan Delbis is really good for his debut movie, and Emma Stone flat out gives the best performance out of any movie from this decade. It's unbelievable how good she is in this, especially in the last 30 minutes when everything goes off the rails. Speaking of which, I know the ending of this one is kinda divisive, with some people thinking it's brilliant, while others think it devalues everything else that happened. In my opinion, I would not say it's satisfying. It's not. But I don't think anything else would have fit the story Lanthimos is trying to tell. Honestly, my only flaw outside of that is that there's a subplot with a police officer that used to babysit one of the characters that has some really serious subject matter involved, and while I liked where it ended up, I feel like it really wasn't given enough emphasis in the story. Still really good, wacky movie from a director that started growing on me. Do you know how good a year has to be to get not one, not two, but 3 horror films in the top 5? I've heard Weapons described as a dark and twisted Pulp Fiction, which, yeah, totally. The way the story is presented is really cool, and really enhances a lot of reveals. This has been a really good year for Josh Brolin, and although I think his best performance this year was in Wake Up Dead Man, this was a close second. In fact, everyone here seems to be giving their best. My only gripe is that the way the story explains away some of the mysteries feels a bit forced and unnatural. I just needed 1 or 2 more clues. Still, a sensationally good mystery movie that has one of the most satisfying endings out of any movie this year. Man, I don't even know what to say. The Long Walk is not a perfect movie. Some stretches can drag, it's easier to predict which characters are going to last longer than others, and there was a death near the beginning that was really gross and way too detailed. If you've watched it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But despite all of this, The Long Walk is, without a doubt, my favorite movie of 2025. Yep, I'm pulling a Sherphillis. I'm putting my favorite in 3rd place because I can't quite justify putting it over the movies in 2nd and 1st. Watching this in cinemas was one of the most overwhelming experiences of my life. The way the gunshots rung through the theater, and the almost pitch black during the night scenes. Dude, whenever night fell in this movie, I felt the fear of God in me, because I knew something was about to go down. I started crying during a sudden death, and basically didn't stop until the movie was over. But don't get me wrong, it's a very hopeful movie too. Seeing these boys form friendships and make the best out of a bad situation. I don't know what else I can say without spoiling every great aspect. So I will leave you with a quote that I think sums up the movie perfectly. Don't think about making it to the end. Think about making it to the next moment. Also, just for interest's sake, this is where Marty Supreme would have gone. If it counted. Listen, if you've kept up with the film world even a little, it should be easy to guess the 2 films left. But you're probably wondering which one's gonna go where. Now I had to think long and hard about what movie I thought was better. It got really close, like you don't understand how neck and neck it was. But in my opinion, the second best movie of 2025 is One Battle After Another is the movie that will represent the cinema of 2025. Now, I haven't watched any of Paul Thomas Anderson's other films because I'm a fake cinephile, but every time I think about this one, I want to cry because everything about it is so peak. How does someone even fathom making a movie this pretty? So many things about the cinematography feel so classic and yet so modern. And watching this in IMAX is one of the most transcendent movie experiences I've ever had. Sean Penn plays the genuine best villain this year. DiCaprio should be in prison, but credit where credit's due. He's really captivating and likable here. And it's insane that this is Chase Infinity's feature film debut, as she is just so unbelievably good. It's hilarious, it's tense, it's incredibly satisfying. There was a character I thought had a pretty underwhelming death, but then the movie pulled the Terminator 2, and I really like where they ended up in the epilogue. So why isn't this number one? Honestly, it's just the first 30 minutes. They're not bad. There was a bank robbery scene here that I was pretty invested in, and they do set up a lot of things. But it's far from the most engaging part of the movie, and feels more like an hour than 30 minutes. Still, if you guys haven't watched it yet, what are you doing? I really need to check out more of this guy's movies, damn. Sinners is somehow good at everything it sets out to do. It's incredibly funny, it's romantic, it's tense and scary one moment and incredibly heartfelt and sweet the next. It works really well as a horror film, but is also the best musical to come out this year. I'm sorry, Wicked, I still love you. Lockjaw might be the best villain of the year, but Remick is a close second. So threatening and vicious, and also sympathetic. Michael B. Jordan is my frontrunner for Best Actor, and Haley Steinfeld is unrecognizable. Shammay is such a likable main character, and there isn't a single character I dislike here or find annoying. It's one of those movies where you get a different experience depending on how deep you want to read into it. You want a fun horror movie? You'll get that. Want an arthouse flick about the music industry? You'll get that too. Want an incredible showcase of some beautiful cinematography? Yep, there's that too. The ending is also incredibly vindicating, as well as having the best post-credit scene in years. So many scenes in this movie feel unreal and Fable-esque. But my favorite is definitely the Irish dig scene. Listen, I put off Sinners for the longest time. Don't be like me. If you haven't watched it, turn this video off right now and go watch it. I'm okay with One Battle After Another taking Best Picture and Director, but this better take everything else. Yeah, 2025 was a pretty good year for movies, despite what some people want you to believe. Let's just hope that 2026 is even better.
All right, that's crazy right there.